She gave up her dreams to build his. And the moment he made it, he left her like she never mattered. Blinded by tears, she ran onto the road, her heart breaking with every step. And just when it felt like her world was ending, a black car came speeding toward her. But fate had other plans, because the man behind that wheel was about to change everything she thought she knew about love, loss, and destiny. Amelia and Kelvin had always been dreamers, two orphans with nothing but hope and each other. They met at a youth shelter when they were barely 16, both hungry, both searching for something that looked like home. Life hadn't given them much, but it had given them each other. They spent evenings sitting under the flickering streetlight near the old bakery, talking about the future. Their dreams were simple but beautiful. To work in the biggest company in London, buy a small house with a white picket fence, and get married someday. They didn't want riches or fame, just stability, just love. To Amelia, that dream was worth everything. And so, she gave everything. At 20, Amelia worked long hours in a tiny cafe at the edge of town. The air always smelled of coffee and fried eggs. Her hands were rough, her apron stained, and her shoes had holes. But every time payday came, she smiled, because she wasn't working for herself. She was working for them. Kelvin wanted to study business and get a job at Crown Tech, the biggest and richest company in London. He used to say, "Once I get in, everything will change for both of us." Amelia believed him with all her heart. So she worked and saved and sacrificed. She paid his school fees, bought his books, packed his lunches, skipped meals just to stretch her wages. Her friends at the cafe often teased her. "Are you his mother or his girlfriend?" Amelia would laugh softly. "Neither. I'm his future." And every Sunday, Kelvin would stop by, his eyes full of promises. He would thank her, kiss her forehead, and call her his angel. In those moments, she believed every word. But as the months passed, things began to shift. Kelvin stopped visiting as often. His calls became shorter, his texts colder. He started talking about networking events and important people, words Amelia didn't quite understand. Still, she believed in him, until one day, her phone buzzed. "I got the job. Crown Tech accepted me." From Kelvin. Amelia screamed in joy, spinning in the cafe kitchen, flour flying in the air. "He did it!" she cried. "We did it!" Her friends clapped and teased her again. "Go, see your man. Maybe he'll finally buy you those new shoes." That night, Amelia stood in front of her mirror, fixing her hair and smiling at her reflection. She wore her favorite yellow dress, the one with the tiny flowers at the hem. The one she always said she'd wear the day their dreams started coming true. She wanted to surprise him at his new office, maybe bring him lunch with her small savings, maybe just hug him and tell him how proud she was. She took the bus to Crown Tech, her heart pounding with joy. When she stepped off, her breath caught. The glass building towered above her like a mountain made of light. Its windows sparkled in the sun, reflecting everything she had ever dreamed of. She whispered to herself, "This is it, our new beginning." But as she stepped into the lobby, the scent of perfume and expensive suits filled the air, and her heart began to tremble. Behind the front desk, she spotted him, Kelvin, standing tall in his new suit, smiling, confident. But he wasn't alone. A tall woman in red heels stood beside him, laughing softly, her manicured hand resting on his chest. Amelia froze. Kelvin turned, and the smile vanished from his face. "Amelia?" he said, like she didn't belong there. The woman frowned, glancing Amelia up and down. "Who's this? The janitor?" Kelvin's throat tightened. "Just someone I used to know." Used to. Those two words shattered everything she had built. Her lips trembled. "Kelvin, it's me!" The woman chuckled. "You dated her? Oh, you really were a charity case." Kelvin looked away, his voice cold. "Amelia, I think you should leave." She couldn't feel her feet, couldn't hear the hum of the lobby anymore, just her heart breaking. She turned and walked out, each step heavier than the last. But even as the glass doors closed behind her, she could still hear them both laughing, his deep, careless chuckle and her sharp, mocking giggle. The sound followed her like a cruel echo, haunting every step she took until her tears blurred the world around her. The sunlight outside was too bright. Her tears blurred everything. Her chest ached like it was collapsing in on itself. She didn't notice the sound of the honking car until it was too late. Honk. The world spun. Tires screamed. And then silence. Amelia lay on the cold pavement, her yellow dress torn at the hem, her bag spilled beside her. Her body trembled as the faint smell of burning rubber filled the air. A black car sat inches away. The driver jumped out first, panic in his eyes. "Sir, are you okay?" He shouted toward the back seat. But before he could say more, the back door opened. A man stepped out, tall, calm, and sharp as midnight. His dark suit looked untouched by the chaos. His shoes gleamed, and his wristwatch caught the sunlight like a small star. Leonardo King, the youngest CEO in Crown Tech's history, the man whose name opened doors and closed deals. He had no idea that the girl lying before him was about to change his life forever. Leonardo's gaze softened as he crouched beside her. "Is she breathing?" The driver knelt quickly, checking her pulse. "Yes, sir." "She fainted, but she's alive." Leonardo exhaled quietly. "Get her in the car. We're taking her to Royal Crest Hospital. Now." The hospital room was quiet, except for the soft beeping of a monitor. Amelia's fingers twitched. Her head ached, and her throat felt dry. Slowly, her eyes fluttered open. The ceiling above her was white, too white. The air smelled clean, like disinfectant and linen. Where was she? Then a voice came. Deep and calm. "You're awake." She turned her head slowly and saw him. The man from the car. He was sitting by her bed, sleeves rolled up, his eyes steady on her. "Hi," he said gently. "I'm Leonardo. You fainted on the road. My car almost hit you." Amelia gasped and tried to sit up, her hands shaking. "Oh my God, did I cause an accident? I'm so sorry. I didn't see." He raised a hand. "Easy. You're fine. Just take it slow." She sank back against the pillow, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you for helping me." He studied her quietly. There was something fragile yet strong about her, something he couldn't name. "Were you running from something?" he asked. Amelia hesitated, her eyes falling to her lap. "No, just life, I guess." He tilted his head slightly. "That's a hard thing to outrun." A soft, sad smile touched her lips. "I lost something today. Someone, actually." Leonardo didn't speak. "I gave him everything," she continued, her voice trembling. "My money, my time, my love. And when he finally got what he wanted," she swallowed, "he left me behind." Silence filled the room for a long moment. Then Leonardo said quietly, "Sometimes the people we lift the highest are the first to forget who held them up." Her eyes met his. For a moment, she felt seen, like someone understood her pain without needing to ask. He gave a faint smile. "You're stronger than you think." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed on the table. He sighed softly, checking the caller ID. "My grandmother," he muttered. "Probably another reminder that I'm still unmarried." Amelia blinked. "Unmarried?" He leaned back, half amused, half annoyed. "She's convinced that no wife means no future. She's planning blind dates like job interviews." Amelia let out a small laugh. "That sounds exhausting." Leonardo's gaze lingered on her smile for a second longer than it should have. Then, slowly, an idea began to take shape in his mind, one that would change both their lives. Leonardo turned from the window and looked at her again. Amelia was still sitting on the edge of the bed, her shoulders drawn in, her eyes distant. There was something fragile about her, but not weak. It was the kind of quiet strength that came from surviving too much. He had seen people break before powerful men, proud women, but she sat there, calm in her ruin, refusing to ask for help. That intrigued him. He took a step closer. "Amelia," he said slowly, testing her name for the first time. She looked up, startled that he'd remembered it. He didn't waste time. "I might have a solution for both of us." She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Leonardo's voice was measured, his expression unreadable. "My grandmother has been pushing me to get married. It's complicated. She believes a man can't run a family business without a family of his own. She controls a large share of my company, and she's made it clear that without a wife, I risk losing it all." Amelia blinked. "That sounds like a lot of pressure." "It is," he admitted. "And I'm not interested in love or drama. I don't have the time or the patience for either." He took another step toward her. "Which brings me to you." She stared at him, confused. "Me?" Leonardo nodded once. "I need a wife. but not a real one. Just someone the world can see by my side. Temporary, professional, no emotions involved. Amelia stared, certain she had misheard him. You want me to pretend to be your wife? Yes. The single word hung in the air, steady and final. She gave a short, disbelieving laugh. You're joking. I don't joke about business, he said, calm as ever. You'd move into my home, attend events with me, and play the part until the board review is done. After that, we go our separate ways. You'll be compensated fairly. She just stared at him, unable to find her words. He went on, his tone even. You said you wanted to start again. Maybe this is how you do it. A clean slate, a fresh beginning, and enough money to rebuild your life, and while you're married to me, use the opportunity to make him regret what he threw away. Amelia's fingers tightened around the bedsheet. This is insane. Leonardo shrugged lightly. So is losing everything to people who never cared. Sometimes the only way forward is to do something unexpected. She stared at him. Why me? He held her gaze. Because you have no reason to use me. You don't know who I am. And you didn't ask for anything. That makes you perfect for this. Her heart raced. This couldn't be real. You don't even know if I can act, she said, trying to sound steady. I don't need you to act, Leonardo replied. Just to be there. He said it so casually, so confidently, as though he were discussing a routine transaction rather than a life-altering arrangement. Amelia shook her head, almost laughing at the absurdity. You barely know me. True, he said, unbothered. But I know you've got courage. You didn't crumble when everything fell apart. That's more than I can say for most people I deal with. Her eyes dropped to her lap. No one had ever called her courageous before. The silence that followed felt thick. She could hear her own heartbeat. Then she asked quietly, How long? 3 months, he said. Long enough to calm my grandmother and settle the board. Amelia stared at him, her thoughts racing. It sounded unbelievable. Too simple, too dangerous, but also tempting. After everything she had lost, maybe this was fate giving her one last card to play. Leonardo extended his hand toward her. You don't have to decide now. Think about it. But if you say yes, my driver will pick you up tomorrow at noon. She looked at his hand for a long moment, then met his eyes. You're serious about this? He nodded once. Completely. Her pulse quickened. And you think I can fit into your world just like that? His lips curved faintly. You'd be surprised how easily truth fits into pretense. That made her look at him longer than she intended. There was something strange about him, controlled, yet kind, confident, but not cruel. Finally, she exhaled. All right, she said softly. I'll do it. Leonardo's eyes flickered with something she couldn't name. Relief, maybe, or interest. Good. I'll send the car. He didn't smile, didn't gloat. He simply turned, adjusting his cufflinks as though sealing a deal. As he reached the door, Amelia just watched him go, her lips parting, as if to speak, but no words came. He paused briefly, glanced back once, and then left without another word. The next morning, sunlight spilled into the hospital room. Amelia sat on the edge of the bed, turning a simple white envelope in her hands. It had been slipped under her door before dawn. Inside, there was a single note written in elegant, deliberate handwriting. Be ready by noon. A black car will be waiting outside. L.K. She read it twice, her heart thudding in her chest. By noon, she stood outside the hospital with her small bag. The air was crisp, her stomach tight with nerves. A black car pulled up to the curb. The driver stepped out, bowed slightly, and opened the door. Miss Amelia, Mr. King is expecting you. She hesitated for only a second before stepping in. As the city blurred past the window, she pressed her palm to the glass, watching buildings and people rush by. The world felt bigger now, too big for someone like her. But there was no going back. She whispered under her breath, almost like a promise to herself. Just 3 months. Then I'll walk away. The driver said nothing, but in the reflection of the glass, she could see her own eyes. Nervous, uncertain, but alive. That afternoon, Leonardo stood in his mansion, staring out at the quiet gardens below. He should have felt satisfied. The plan was set, everything under control. But as the wind rustled through the trees, he realized something. For the first time in years, he was curious about someone. And that, he thought grimly, could be dangerous. The courtroom was quiet, too quiet for something as life-changing as a wedding. No music, no flowers, just a wooden desk, 2 signatures, and a silence that felt heavier than vows. Amelia's hand trembled slightly as she picked up the pen. Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear the clerk's voice. Across from her, Leonardo stood calm and composed, dark suit, steady eyes, not a single hint of hesitation. When her pen touched the paper, Amelia hesitated for just a moment. She looked at the empty ring finger on her hand. She remembered the promises Kelvin once made under the moonlight. One day, I'll marry you. We'll have a little house with a white fence. Now she was marrying someone else, someone who didn't even love her. Leonardo's voice broke through her thoughts. It's just a signature, Amelia. Nothing more. She blinked, took a breath, and signed. He followed his strokes, sharp and confident. The clerk gathered the papers, stamped them twice, and stood. Congratulations, he said flatly. You're officially husband and wife. It was the quietest wedding in the world. No flowers, no vows, no laughter. Just 2 strangers who had made a deal. Leonardo extended his hand. Shall we? Amelia nodded, still dazed, and followed him out of the courthouse. Outside, the world went on as if nothing had happened. People rushing, cars honking, sunlight glinting off glass windows. But for Amelia, everything had changed. She was now Mrs. Amelia King. At least, on paper. The black car pulled up in front of a mansion so large, Amelia thought for a second it was a museum. White pillars framed the entrance, and glass doors gleamed under the afternoon sun. The driver got out and opened her door. Welcome home, Mrs. King. She froze at the title. It sounded strange, unreal. Leonardo glanced at her expression and said, almost teasingly, You'll get used to it. He led her through the tall doors, past marble floors that looked too clean to walk on. Every corner shimmered gold frames, soft lights, and the faint scent of roses. Amelia had never seen anything like it. This way, Leonardo said, his voice steady and low. They walked through the grand living room, up a curved staircase, and into a hallway lined with portraits. Finally, he stopped in front of a door and opened it. This will be your room. Amelia stepped inside. The walls were soft cream, the bed huge and covered in white sheets that looked like clouds. A vase of fresh lilies sat by the window. It's beautiful, she whispered. Everything you need is here, he said. Clothes, toiletries, whatever you might require. If you need anything else, ask Clara, the housekeeper. She turned to him. You really thought of everything. Leonardo gave a small shrug. I like things organized. He paused for a moment, studying her face. There's a dinner party tomorrow night. My grandmother will be there. You'll need to look the part. Amelia blinked. The part? He smiled faintly. My wife. She nodded slowly. Right. I'll have a stylist sent over in the morning, he continued. You'll also get a few media calls. People will want to know who Mrs. King is. Just stay calm, smile, and say as little as possible. I can do that. Good. He turned to leave, then stopped at the door. One more thing. Amelia looked up. He met her gaze, his tone softening. You did well today. You didn't look scared. She smiled faintly. That's because I still can't believe it's real. For the first time, something like amusement flickered in his eyes. Neither can I. Then he left. That night, Amelia stood by the window of her new room, staring out at the glowing garden below. She was wearing a silk nightgown someone had laid out for her, soft, warm, almost too perfect to touch. But she couldn't sleep. Her mind kept replaying the day, the clerk's voice, Leonardo's steady hand, the echo of the word wife. She had dreamed of marriage once, but that dream had been made of laughter and love, not contracts and signatures. Still, there was something about Leonardo she couldn't shake. He wasn't kind in a warm way, but he wasn't cold either. He carried an energy that drew people in and kept them guessing. And though she told herself this was just business, a small part of her wondered what kind of man he really was beneath the armor. Morning came with quiet footsteps and the scent of fresh coffee. By noon, the living room looked like a runway. Stylists unpacked racks of dresses, shoes, and jewelry. Amelia stood in the middle, overwhelmed. Try this one, said the stylist, holding up a shimmering gold gown. It matches your skin tone perfectly. As they dressed her, fixed her hair, and added a touch of makeup, Amelia stared at her reflection. She barely recognized herself. The girl who once served coffee and mopped cafe floors was gone. In her place stood a woman who looked powerful, untouchable. Leonardo walked in, just as the stylist adjusted the final pin in her hair. For a moment, he said nothing. His eyes simply took her in quietly, almost carefully. Then he said, "Perfect." Amelia turned to face him.
"You think this will convince them?"
He smiled faintly. "It'll convince everyone." That night, as the black car pulled up outside the grand venue, Amelia's heart beat faster than ever. Flashes from cameras sparkled outside like lightning. The media had already heard the news, the mysterious new Mrs. King. Leonardo offered his hand. "Ready?" Amelia took it, her fingers trembling. "As ready as I'll ever be." "Good," he said, opening the door for her. "Then let the world meet my wife." She stepped out into the glow of the lights, her golden dress catching every flash, her heart racing. Beside her, Leonardo's hand tightened slightly over hers, a silent reminder that the act had begun, and every eye was watching. The ballroom glowed beneath cascading lights, every sparkle reflected on polished floors and crystal chandeliers. Amelia had never seen anything like it. She stood beside Leonardo, her hand looped through his arm, her golden dress shimmering like sunlight trapped in silk. He leaned slightly toward her. "Breathe," he murmured, "and smile. You belong here." She nodded, forcing a small smile. Minutes later, a man in a black suit whispered something in Leonardo's ear. "I'll be right back," he told her softly. "Don't go too far." Amelia watched him disappear into the crowd, then exhaled, alone again. She made her way toward the refreshment table, clutching a glass of sparkling water, doing her best to look calm. The room buzzed with laughter, polished manners, and quiet power. She almost felt invisible until she heard a voice that froze her heart. "Amelia?" Her body went cold. She turned and there he was, Kelvin. He looked exactly as she remembered, except sharper, colder. His suit screamed success, his arm wrapped around a tall woman in red with a smile too smug to be real. "Kelvin," she whispered. Vanessa's voice cut through the air like glass.
"Oh my God, Amelia?"
She laughed, a cruel, high sound.
"You're actually here? What did you sneak in to serve drinks?"
Amelia straightened her shoulders. "I was invited," Kelvin frowned. "Invited? To this event? You?" The laughter that followed made Amelia's stomach twist. Vanessa leaned in, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Wow, you really upgraded, didn't you? Must be nice pretending to belong here." A few heads turned. Whispers began. Amelia tried to keep her voice steady. "I'm not here for you." Vanessa scoffed. "Of course not. But maybe you should leave before security gets confused." She turned to grab Amelia's arm too hard.
"People like you."
"Let go of my wife." The voice was calm, deep, and dangerous. Vanessa froze. Kelvin blinked, confused. Slowly, both turned toward the sound. He walked up slowly, placing a firm hand around Amelia's waist. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice calm but sharp enough to cut glass. Vanessa stammered. "No, Mr. King. I didn't realize she was..." Leonardo's gaze didn't move. "My wife." "Yes." Kelvin's voice cracked. "Your wife? But how? We just... Amelia? What is this?" Amelia met his eyes, steady now. "This is what moving on looks like." Leonardo's tone cooled even more. "And you are?" Kelvin swallowed hard.
"K. Kelvin Thomas, sir. I work at Crown Tech's marketing division."
A faint smirk appeared at Leonardo's lips. "Crown Tech?" he repeated, his hand still on Amelia's waist. "Then it's interesting you don't know who your CEO is." Kelvin froze. "You're... the CEO?" The whispers spread instantly through the crowd. Leonardo King, the man who owned Crown Tech, the very company Kelvin bragged about working for. Amelia's eyes widened. She hadn't known either. He never said a word. Leonardo turned to Vanessa, who was visibly trembling now. "You grabbed my wife in public. You humiliated her. You owe her an apology." Vanessa stuttered. I'm sorry, Mrs. King. I didn't mean..." Leonardo raised a brow. Louder. Her face turned red as she spoke again. "I'm sorry, Mrs. King." Leonardo's gaze shifted to Kelvin. "And you?" Kelvin's throat bobbed. I apologize, sir. I didn't know she was..." Leonardo cut him off. "You didn't need to know who she was to treat her with respect. This will be handled first thing tomorrow morning at the office." The crowd murmured in agreement. The shame on Kelvin's face was unmistakable. Leonardo's tone softened only slightly as he turned to Amelia. You okay? She nodded. Yes. He took her hand. Then, let's go give them something else to whisper about. He led her to the dance floor as the orchestra began a soft, elegant tune. The room parted for them. As they danced, Amelia could still feel her heart hammering, half from nerves, half from disbelief. She whispered, You didn't tell me you own Crown Tech. He looked down at her, expression unreadable. You never asked. She gave a quiet, breathless laugh. That's not something people forget to mention. He shrugged lightly. Some things are better revealed at the right time. Their eyes met briefly. The faintest smile tugged at his lips. Besides, he murmured, it was worth the surprise. When the music ended, polite applause followed, but all Amelia could feel was her pulse, steadying again. Then a voice, graceful yet firm, called out from behind them, Leonardo. They both turned. An elegant older woman stood near the edge of the dance floor. Silver hair, deep eyes, a posture that radiated quiet authority. Leonardo straightened. Grandmother, Amelia blinked. So this was the famous Teresa King. Grandma Teresa's sharp eyes swept over Amelia. So, this is the woman who tamed you? Leonardo chuckled lightly. She's the best decision I've made in years. The old woman smiled faintly and extended a hand toward Amelia. You're lovely, my dear. And your eyes, they carry strength. I like that. Amelia bowed slightly. Thank you, ma'am. Teresa studied her for a moment, then nodded in approval. You don't come from money, do you? Amelia hesitated. No, ma'am. I've worked for everything I've ever owned. Good, the older woman said with a smile. That means you know the value of things people here take for granted. Leonardo smirked. I told you you'd like her. Teresa gave a small chuckle. I do. Finally, you've brought home someone with substance. As she turned to leave, she added, Take care of each other. And Leonardo, don't ruin this one. Amelia's eyes widened a little. But Leonardo only laughed softly. Later that night, in the car, silence filled the space between them. Amelia finally spoke. You really own Crown Tech? Leonardo nodded once. I do. And Kelvin works for you? Yes. His voice was calm, matter of fact. He'll think twice before mocking anyone again. Amelia shook her head slowly, still processing everything. You didn't have to do that. I didn't do it for you, he said quietly. I did it because no one humiliates my wife. Pretend or not. She looked out the window, her reflection flickering against the city lights. Still, thank you. And as they drove down the quiet road, city lights fading behind them, neither said a word. The silence wasn't awkward, it was heavy, meaningful, and for the first time, Amelia felt something shift in her heart, because no one had ever stood up for her before. Weeks went by, and the mansion no longer felt as cold as it once did. The long hallways didn't echo with silence anymore, and the smell of expensive cologne was now mixed with the soft scent of home-cooked meals. Amelia had settled in. Every morning, she woke early, walked through the garden, and made breakfast not for show, not for duty, but because she wanted to. And every evening, Leonardo would return to find something new waiting. Soft music playing in the background, the faint aroma of soup or freshly baked bread, and a woman who somehow made his steel and glass world feel warm again. At first, he didn't understand it. He wasn't used to coming home to anything other than silence. His parents had died when he was young, and his grandmother, though loving, had been more steel than softness. His life had been built on schedules, strategy, and success, not laughter and warmth. But something about Amelia changed that. She didn't try to impress him. She didn't fill the air with chatter. She just was. And somehow, her quiet presence spoke louder than anything he had ever heard. One night, he returned from work much later than usual. The house was dark, except for a small light in the kitchen. He walked in to find Amelia asleep on the couch, a blanket half covering her, a book open on her chest. He stood there for a long time, just watching her. There was something peaceful about the sight, something he didn't want to disturb. He reached over, carefully took the book from her hands, and placed it on the table. Then he covered her properly with the blanket. She stirred, mumbling softly in her sleep. Leonardo. He froze for a second, surprised. Then, a faint smile crossed his face. Sleep, he whispered, and for the first time in years, Leonardo King felt what it meant to come home, truly home. The next morning, Amelia woke up early, humming softly as she made breakfast. She didn't know he had seen her sleeping on the couch the night before. She just knew she liked taking care of him, even if he didn't need it. When Leonardo came downstairs, he paused at the dining table. "French toast?" he asked. She smiled, with a little cinnamon this time. He raised a brow, sitting down. "You're getting bolder. In my kitchen, I like to experiment," she said with a small laugh. He tasted it. "And I like your experiments." Their eyes met, and for a second, neither of them looked away. Then the phone rang, breaking the moment. Leonardo sighed and answered. "Yes, Grandma. What surprise?" Amelia tried not to smile at the frustration on his face. "Yes, I'll be home by 6, he said, hanging up. "She's coming over." Amelia blinked. "Your grandmother?" He nodded. "Brace yourself. She's the real CEO of this family." That evening, when Leonardo drove up to the mansion, he heard laughter before he even stepped inside. Genuine, full laughter. He frowned in confusion. The last time this house had been that loud, he was still a boy. He opened the door slowly, loosening his tie, and stopped in the hallway. The sound was coming from the kitchen. He walked in, and what he saw made him pause completely. Amelia stood beside his grandmother, both wearing aprons, their hands dusted with flour. The counter was a beautiful mess: bowls, dough, spoons, and a warm smell of something baking. Grandma Teresa laughed heartily as Amelia told a story about burning toast in her old cafe job. His grandmother laughed so hard she had to hold the counter for balance. "Oh, I like this one," she said between chuckles. "You're a breath of fresh air, my dear." Leonardo leaned against the doorframe, quietly watching. He hadn't seen his grandmother laugh like that in years. For a while, he didn't say anything. He just watched the two women who had somehow filled his world with warmth he didn't even know he'd been missing. Finally, his grandmother noticed him and smiled. "You're home early," she teased. "Come taste what we made." Amelia turned, her face lighting up. "We baked cookies." Leonardo smirked. "I didn't realize the kitchen was now a bakery." Amelia grinned. "Just for today." He stepped closer, eyeing the tray on the counter. "You actually baked these?" "Mostly her," Grandma Teresa said. "I just supervised." Leonardo picked up one cookie, took a bite, and his eyes widened slightly. "It's good." Amelia laughed. "You sound surprised." "I am," he admitted, smiling for real this time. "I didn't know this house could smell like butter and happiness." Grandma Teresa chuckled. "That's what happens when a good woman walks in, Leonardo. She brings life with her." Amelia blushed slightly. Leonardo met her gaze for a moment, something unspoken flickering there. "Maybe," he said softly. "Or maybe I just forgot what home was supposed to feel like." His grandmother smiled knowingly. "Then maybe you're remembering now. That night." Long after his grandmother had gone home and the laughter had faded, Leonardo stood in the quiet kitchen, looking at the half-empty tray of cookies. He could still hear their laughter echoing faintly in his mind. The house felt alive, warm, human. He leaned on the counter, exhaling slowly. For years, he had believed success could fill every empty space in his life. But now, watching the woman who had come into his world by accident, a woman who had once walked away from heartbreak into his path, Leonardo realized something simple, yet powerful. It wasn't the mansion that made him feel rich. It was the people inside it. 3 months passed faster than either of them expected. The grand board meeting came and went, the one that had started it all. Leonardo's plan had worked perfectly. The investors were satisfied. The merger had gone through, and every headline praised the stability of his marriage. On paper, he had everything he'd wanted. In reality, the victory felt hollow. The morning after the meeting, Amelia found him in the living room, silent, unreadable. They both knew what day it was, the last day of their agreement. Neither spoke about it. Neither needed to. That's when he handed her the envelope, the agreed payment, and said quietly, "You've kept your end of the deal." She smiled faintly, though her voice trembled. "And you've kept yours." Their goodbye was short, polite, and heartbreakingly calm. Her heels echoed down the marble hall. The door opened, closed, softly, and the silence that followed was deafening. He stood there for a long time, staring at the empty doorway, then exhaled a long, controlled breath that didn't make him feel any lighter. The next morning, He went back to his usual routine. Early meetings, back-to-back calls, the endless hum of controlled success. But the rhythm that had once grounded him now felt wrong. When he came home that night, the house felt foreign. No music, no laughter, no scent of cinnamon or coffee drifting from the kitchen. He poured himself a drink, took a slow sip, and caught sight of an envelope on the counter, his own handwriting on the front. He frowned, picked it up. Inside was the untouched payment. And on top, one folded note, written in her careful, neat handwriting. I can't accept this payment, because somewhere along the way, I stopped pretending, and that wasn't part of our deal. He stood there, motionless, his throat tight. For the first time in years, the house felt colder than glass. Days blurred together after that. The press assumed the couple was laying low after the merger's success. But Leonardo knew the truth. He wasn't laying low, he was lonely. And every day felt meaningless without her. He tried to focus on work, but every file he opened reminded him of her handwriting on his desk notes. Every empty chair across from him felt wrong. Every morning, he caught himself glancing toward the staircase, expecting her soft, "Good morning." And when night came, he'd walk through the quiet halls, remembering how her laughter once filled them. It was Teresa who finally broke the silence. "You sound empty," she said over the phone. "I'm fine," he lied. "No," she replied calmly. "You're functioning. There's a difference." He said nothing. "Leonardo, I've seen men like you win everything except peace," she continued. "Ask yourself, did she leave because the contract ended, or because you never asked her to stay?" He frowned slightly. "How did you know, Grandma, that it was all just pretense? That she was gone?" Teresa leaned back in her chair, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Because I've lived long enough to tell the difference between real and fake, my dear. And what you shared with her was real, no matter what name you gave it. Love can't be faked. I saw the way you looked at each other. You stopped acting long before you realized it." She hung up before he could reply. 2 more weeks passed before he gave in to the ache. He couldn't stand it anymore. The empty house, the quiet mornings, the echo of her voice in his memory. So one rainy afternoon, he got in his car and started driving. No plan, no destination, just instinct. He retraced the fragments of her life, the small cafe where she used to stop for coffee, the old neighborhood she once mentioned, the charity shop she donated to, and even her former workplace. Nothing. Then, as he turned a quiet corner, he saw at a small flower shop with a green awning streaked by rain. Through the window, he saw her, Amelia. She was standing behind the counter, her hair tied back, arranging a bouquet with quiet focus. Her face was peaceful, her smile faint but real. He stood outside for a second, letting the rain soak his coat, before finally pushing the door open. The bell chimed softly. She looked up and froze. "Leonardo?" He tried to smile, but his voice came out rough. "You're not easy to find." "I didn't want to be found," she said quietly, then softened. "Why are you here?" "Because," he began, stepping closer, "I realized I signed the wrong kind of contract." She frowned. "What do you mean?" He reached into his coat and unfolded a single sheet of paper blank, except for one line written across the top. "A lifetime contract." Her eyes widened, tears welling instantly. "Leonardo, this time," he said gently, "no signatures, no deadlines, no pretending. I don't want a name for the board or a wife for the cameras. I just want you, the woman who made my house feel like home." Her voice trembled. "You don't have to do this." "I know," he said softly. "That's why it's real." She hesitated, eyes searching his. "What about your grandmother?" He gave a faint, almost shy smile. "She already told me to stop being a coward." A soft laugh escaped her. That sounds like her. He took a slow step closer. "So, Amelia, will you accept this contract?" She bit her lip, smiling through tears. "A lifetime one?" He nodded. "No clauses. No escape plan." She laughed. "No pretending?" He smiled. "Never. Again." And then she nodded, small. He exhaled shakily, and before either could say more, he reached for her. The world outside faded into the rain. They didn't rush to announce anything. They spent the next few weeks quietly rebuilding what had already been growing between them, only now, without pretense. When Teresa visited and saw them together, she smiled knowingly. "I knew you were the right woman to tame him the moment I saw you," she said, her eyes twinkling with pride. Amelia blushed softly. "I'm not sure about taming, ma'am. I just love him." Teresa chuckled. "Exactly my point." When they finally decided to go public, it was with a single headline: Leonardo King and wife renew vows in private ceremony. No cameras, no crowd, just the two of them, Teresa, and a clerk who smiled as they signed the same book where they once signed their fake marriage. "This time, no pretending," Leonardo whispered. Amelia smiled. "And no goodbyes." Months later, the mansion was alive again. Music drifted through the halls. The garden bloomed wildly. The smell of baking filled the air. Amelia hummed softly in the kitchen as Leonardo leaned against the doorway, watching her with quiet awe. He walked over, gently embracing her from behind. "So, Mrs. King, still glad you stayed?" he whispered. She smiled up at him. "Every single day." He kissed her forehead. "Good, because I don't plan on letting you go." For the first time in his life, Leonardo King understood that success wasn't measured in power or deals. It was in moments like this, simple, human, real. He'd built an empire, but with her, he built a home. And this time, there were no contracts, only love. What started as a contract for Leonardo and a quiet act of payback for Amelia became something neither of them expected. A love story, written by fate, not by paper. Moral of the story: sometimes life breaks us just enough to open our hearts. And when love finally comes, it doesn't need perfection, just courage to believe again. The end. Did you enjoy this story? Kindly let us know where you are watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for watching.